Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Blame Harry Styles, a podcast dedicated to the work of musician, model, actor, and icon Harry Styles, as well as his numerous talented collaborators.
This week in episode 12, we're going to take a deep dive into Harry's Lights Up music video.
Finally. All right, my name is Key.
And I'm Gray.
What do we blame Harry for this week?
Okay, so as an extension of my tale last week of appreciating Harry's banana necklace, because I want to be exactly like him, but in my own special way, I decided that I wanted my own banana necklace. So, obviously I didn't buy the Gucci one, which had sold out immediately, and I wouldn't spend that much on a dick necklace anyway. But I went to Etsy, and I was looking around, and I searched for banana necklace, and there was this artist that's like Petite Treats by Sierra. I like her stuff so much that it'll be in the link of the podcast. I'm shilling for her. And I bought this wonderful thing. So she had bananas, but she also had a necklace that was a piece of toast that has peanut butter and banana slices on it. Look at that. I'm making Key look at it again. This is the second time that he's seen it.
It's very cute.
But I'm just so enthralled by it. And I don't know where I'm going to wear it because I don't really usually wear necklaces around my home. But it's just like a little piece of Harry with me, just some cut up bananas. I was very, very excited.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. What do you blame Harry for this week?
So I have a two-pronged answer for you. So my first is not related to the topic of the episode, and my second is related to the topic of the episode. So first of all, we've kind of hinted in our episodes previous that, let us just say, certain people have been getting into a certain little thing called the Marvel Cinematic Universe again. Now, the reason I say certain people is you'd think it's because I mean me, but I don't just mean me. I mean everybody. I mean, like, on my social media timeline, I'm seeing like many people be like, I'm on YouTube again watching edits of my favorite character. Oh God, somehow I've ended up watching all 3 of the Captain America movies in the last 3 days.
People
like, I've been seeing this.
Expect too. Like, yeah, like it's all the Harrys on my timeline. Everybody's like hanging my head and trudging back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Got it. So I blame Harry for this because Harry has not been up to much. And so I think it's his fault that we're all digging deep back into the hole that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so I blame him for that. And secondly, I blame Harry for my desire for chest tattoos. So this was, and we'll get into, because we're talking about the Lights Up music video this episode, and we'll get into our thoughts and reactions and everything as the episode goes on. But one of my big takeaways when I first saw the Lights Up music video was, God damn it, like his chest tattoos look so good in this video. And I just wanted them so bad. And I have tattoos myself. I have several tattoos. And tattoos are painful, you guys. I know you know this. So this is not like new information that I'm sharing with you. But, my tattoos are on my arms and they were painful. And, I consider myself to have a pretty high pain tolerance. But when I got my tattoos in my arms, I was like, I'm not going to get them on my chest because if they're painful on my arms, like I can't imagine how much more painful a not tiny tattoo on your chest is. And then I watch this music video and I'm like, God damn it, like they just look so good, and like he just looks so good with them, and it just makes me want them. And so that is a point of frustration for me, and I blame Harry for breaking down my resistance to getting tattoos in that area of my body, which I'm sure would be a very painful experience for me. I support you on your tattoo journey, Key. You should get chest tattoos.
Well, if I do, I'm sure that I can blame Harry Styles for that.
Good. Okay, so there hasn't really been any news. So we are going to move right into our main segment, which is our Lights Up music video retrospective. Again, we're so excited. Key, do you want to kick off why we're recording this episode?
Yeah, so, listeners might wonder, like, Lights Up came out in October, like a long time ago. This isn't the anniversary of it. This isn't, why are we talking about this now? And basically, this is an episode we've been wanting to do since we started this podcast. And it's something that I've always really wanted to discuss because Lights Up, I think, the song and particularly the music video, I think is like my favorite thing that Harry's like ever done. And it was the thing that he did that kind of kickstarted me being a fan of him in the first place. So this was really like the singular event that turned me into a Harry Styles fan, was seeing the music video and hearing this song. And yeah, so I think I just was kind of dying to dissect it and get into the video and my feelings on it and why that was. And yeah, to talk about it with you in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I love this music video too. It's just so exciting to finally be talking about it because, yeah, like you said, it's something that I've wanted to do from the beginning as well. Yeah, so before we get into the meat of things, we're going to talk through the timeline. I'm going to sort of guide along, but for some background info, I actually was not around for Lights Up release. Like, I was alive. I just wasn't paying attention. But he was around for at least some of it, yes?
Yeah, tangentially. So, you know, I, at the time, this was one of the things where this like really broke through. There's some things that Harry does that like break through the barrier into the general public, and there are some things that don't. And this is definitely something that did. So I was like on social media at the time, you know, not really being a Harry Styles fan. I had like vaguely positive feelings towards him, but I wasn't like a fan, you know. And a ton of people that I've followed on social media, you know, this is not like Harry Styles fans, this is like the general public, just people that I know, like a ton of people were tweeting about this in the lead up to it before it even came out. So and we'll get into, you'll get into very soon, like the different lead up things that occurred that kind of hyped people up in preparation for this release of the song and music video. But I just witnessed it, you know, on my social media timeline, just a bunch of people that were talking about it and discussing it. So it was definitely one of those things that kind of broke through into the general public.
Except for me. I unfortunately missed this, and I am so sad about it. Okay, so the timeline. So on October 5th, 2019, Harry gets his phone out and he types in 2 letters. Do. And so then, of course, Do What trends and breaks the internet.
Amazing. Iconic.
Teen Vogue reported it delightfully. They did a bunch of reporting on this early campaign, and it makes me laugh so much that it definitely will be in the links. But they said, without any other context, it's obviously pretty confusing to fans. Did he press send too soon? Did he fall asleep while tweeting? Was he hacked? Is he teasing new music? What's going on?
So it turns out multiple of those ended up being true.
Yes, multiple of them were true. I'm not entirely sure of the exact timeline of this next one that I'm saying, but I know that some Harrys, I learned this recently, that some Harrys had seen on Spotify that there was like a new music coming from this artist sign.
Yeah, and he was the cover of the new music like playlist.
Then there started being billboards that were painted, Do You Know Who You Are? And his record label with TPWK for, you know, treat people with kindness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so people started noticing that. I think that was in Australia, right?
Yeah, I think maybe that was the first sighting of it, yeah.
Yeah, and then the Do You Know Who You Are website went up, and I have to read off this description because it's just so stinky cute. Teen Vogue reported, if you've long dreamed of a personal compliment from Harry, today is your day. Fans have pointed out that a website titled DYKWA, Do You Know Who You Are, is now live, and if you put in your name, a personal message from the singer will appear. Like the recently spotted billboards, the website includes the same possible hints at an upcoming new album, including Harry's signature phrase, TPWK, and the Love H, presumably meaning Love Harry, at the bottom. The singer also has a history of using websites to drop hints and made a similar move back in 2017. Ooh.
Cryptic. Yeah, so all of these are kind of part and parcel, right? So I think the obvious point of speculation is that, because he said later in an interview, right, that he like woke up in the middle of the night and just decided, oh, I'm going to do something for promo, and like tweeted the word do. And then Jeff Azov, his manager, like texted him and was like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And so the obvious point of speculation is that he was going to tweet, do you know who you are, or something, or Yeah, or he was
Or
going to
like
tweet like
one
the
a
first
day or
word and then,
something.
yeah, something like that. And so I find this an interesting choice to choose a phrase like this that's in the lyrics of the song that isn't the title of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like it. I think it was a very cool, very effective hype building strategy at this
Yeah,
point in time.
I agree. And Do What is so iconic. Like,
And it's so funny.
it's just so funny. So on October 10th at 11 p.m., Harry posts a photo of himself looking sweaty and radiant. He's in his suspenders with the titties out and cross necklace. Beautiful. Key, you were around for this.
Yes, I was. Yes, so all of this stuff by this point, so I'd noticed the do thing and I thought it was really funny. And I kind of heard, the stuff about the billboards because like people were hyped about it. People were talking about it. Everybody was like new Harry Styles music. Like people were excited about it. And then this picture kind of was like the confirmation, right, straight from his mouth that it was real and that it was imminent, that it was going to happen really soon. So it's just really exciting. And it's also just a good photo of him, and he looks
It's so
good.
good.
And
He looks good.
yeah,
Yeah.
effective hype train.
And then at 11:30, Harry posts a square, and it's him also titties out, and it says "Lights Up" on it.
Yeah, so this is the single cover. So I love this single cover.
It's so good.
It's just so pretty, and it's so like the the interesting part of like him being in the dark and you can't really see his face with the name of the song being like lights up, so it's like kind of mysterious and like it's a very effective single cover. Also, I love this font.
Yeah, it's great. And then at 12:01 on October 11th, Harry posts a photograph of him diving into the water, in the pink water, and he says "Lights Up, out now," which is, I am actually just realizing right now, is an extremely evocative image to be pairing with that. That's a real, because it looks like he's jumping. That's a real, like, here goes jump into the water. That's kind of like, ooh, you get chills a little bit.
Yeah.
I love that.
And we'll talk more throughout because these are all images from the music video, or images at least from the locations that are in the music video. So as the episode continues on, we'll kind of get deeper into what some of these locations and outfits and images kind of signify or what we think about them. But yeah, just to bring them up early on in the podcast, I think the Lights Up music video just has such a clear aesthetic, and so these images from it are just really beautiful and were enjoyable to see, because I don't think not for any of the other music videos in this era has he kind of rolled it out in this way. So it was like a very clear, like, this is the beginning of it all kind of thing. So that makes it fun and cool.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now we're going to attempt to recap what happens in this non-linear music video. We definitely put a lot of thought into how we were going to cover this. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about how it was covered by other publications, and then we're going to sort of talk about the aesthetics that we pulled ourselves from it. So the two main publications that I thought described best what happened were E! Online and Paper Magazine, their coverage of this music video. So Paper Mag said, the Lights Up video, shot with the cinematography of a movie drug scene, sees a sweat-slick, shirtless Harry being caressed by a crowd of all genders. Both men and women grab at him, grind on him, and kiss his neck. It looks like a modern update to an orgy scene in The Hair. As we know, Harry is addicted to the 70s.
Okay, is it in The Hair? So is that how the article put that, or is that a typo?
I mean, I copy-pasted it in. So, Paper Magazine, okay. We caught you.
So it means hair, like
it's
hair.
Listeners, it is hair in italics in the document.
Yeah.
So later in the artful video, he wades into a lake in a sparkly jumpsuit, rides on the back of a mysterious companion's motorcycle, and hangs upside down staring at his reflection. And then E! Online tacks on. Throughout the 3-minute clip, which was filmed in Mexico, Styles can be seen brooding and having an emotional struggle in a room alone. Elsewhere, he's standing in a body of water, floating midair, and riding on the back of a motorcycle as he sings, "I'm Never Coming Back Down." Now, I feel like this is a very, very good, extremely general summation of what occurs in the music video.
That is indeed what happened.
But now we're going to get into a really fun segment I like to call a brief list of descriptions of what exactly Harry is doing with the crowd of sexy people in the Lights Up music video. We're gonna take some names and write them down because I have all these descriptions and the publications right next to them. So we're coming for you. Refinery 29, Paper Magazine, Cosmopolitan, we're here. Okay, so Refinery 29 said he was dancing and cuddling with all genders.
Cuddling?
Cuddling.
I really don't, I don't know about that one.
Caressed by a crowd of all genders. That was Paper Magazine.
Accurate.
Yep. A sweaty, slicked up Styles standing shirtless in the middle of a pulsing throng of semi-nude men. And, this is all caps. The and is all caps. Women. The Crimson. In the sensuous clutches of a crowd of dancers, said Vogue.
So evocative.
And almost naked Harry frolicking. Frolicking with a group of very sweaty men and women. That's Cosmopolitan. Shirtless, living out an orgy-like haze dream. Teen Vogue. I
like that one a lot.
So Teen Vogue got more detailed than Vogue itself. Orgy-like haze dream. I like Teen Vogue's better.
Yeah, me too.
A steamy music video which finds him in a sea of sensual dancing people who just can't take their hands off each other. That one's E! Online. He is entangled within the throng of sensuous admirers of all genders. That one's Michigan Daily. And finally, rounding off with Nylon Magazine. People of all genders dance and grind on the singer who appears to be woozy yet happy in his place at the center of the celebration. So, wow. I just had to make this list because I read so many articles for this and each one, chef's kiss. Applause,
it's
applause.
So interesting to see how the media chooses to cover things like this. Very amusing to look at how they described it.
Very amusing. Okay, so Key, do you want to start talking about like color and theme and aesthetics and sort of how that fits into how you would personally recap the video?
Yeah, so I kind of when seeking to recap this video for you guys, I kind of it's hard, right? Because when we did this, we had a very similar structure for our Treat People with Kindness music video episode, and I think that seemed to work well. But that was a really easy video to recap because that video has a plot. Things take place in a sequence of events in that video, so you can kind of take people through the video in that context. And with Lights Up, you really can't. And we're going to talk a little bit more later about like what that might signify and what we think kind of the tone of this video is and what it's trying to get across with that. But it does make it kind of difficult to recap. So I have here kind of a combination of recap based on location and also chronology. So I kind of went in chronological order of like when these locations appear in the video, and then went kind of location by location because, you know, that's something that emerged for me as a way to kind of sum up what happens in the video. Because a lot of things in this video, like, you know, if we wanted to have a podcast where all we did was break down the video shot by shot, like we could do that and it would take a long time and it might be interesting, but that's, you know, not so much what we're going for here. So that was kind of like what my thought process was for why I'm going to break it down like this. So yeah, so the video starts out with just Harry shirtless, and I've called this the green lighting orgy scene. Now we've said, you know, Gray and I, before we started talking about this episode, really, is it an orgy? But that's what the media sphere has deemed it. So that's kind of what we're going to use for this location. So the video kind of rapidly cuts through some of the other scenes that will come later. And I noted here that he looks up. So Harry looks up almost like he's preparing for something, was something that I found interesting at the beginning of this video. So this takes place all within the intro of the song before the beat kicks in. So, and almost the whole intro of the song is in this particular setting, in this location. So there's a progression to this intro, right? He starts off the video mostly alone, and then he gets farther and farther into the group of people as the intro kind of kicks in. And then they touch him right before the beat kicks in. Mm-hmm. So this is the scene also where throughout the video he breaks for the camera, looking at it directly, smiling at the camera. So this doesn't really happen in the other scenes in the video. So I just wanted to note that, you know, as we continue on, that this is kind of where he breaks for the camera. I noted here that he's tan. He has a sunburned nose, and that he's basking in the light.
Radiant.
So yeah, so the beat kicks in and it changes to what looks like kind of like a beachy background. One of the articles before said it was a lake, but to me, from some of the images that we got, it's like kind of a beachy scene with that dark blue sky behind him. He's in this stark red light. So it's like a really, really stark red light on him in this location. And he's wearing that kind of sequin, looks like a dark blue jumpsuit. The color palette in this location is that blue, purple, and red. This scene, in contrast to the previous, is alone. So he's singing alone here. He's kind of looking around almost as if lost is kind of like what happens in this setting. And so something that follows that is the motorcycle setting. So there's, again, a stark red light on this scene with kind of the same color palettes, that blues and purples, with that light purple in his outfit. And it kicks in actuality for the first time on the line Never Coming Back Down, I noted, which I thought was interesting and maybe is something that will come up later in the podcast. And then this setting kind of progresses to the end of the video as the motorcycle passes by the police. So you get that kind of red and blue of the lights of the police car that kind of work with the red and blue of the general aesthetic of this setting.
Oh, I didn't point out also at the beach, my limited understanding of film theory understands that some of the stuff at the beach is filmed at a Dutch angle, which represents uncertainty for the audience.
Wow, film theory 101 on this podcast. Who is paying us for this coverage? Thank you for saying that, yeah.
Yeah.
So then after, we progress into the green room setting. So I call it this because that's just like what it looks like to me. I think what it is meant to evoke. It's like the waiting area that performers wait in before or after they perform. So it starts off kind of in little flashes. He's in this light blue outfit that would be the precursor to opening performances of this song. So this outfit that he wears in the green room setting, right, which is that light blue outfit with the sparkly shirt and suspenders. Much of his outfits that he would kind of introduce the era with, like what he wore on Jules Holland, etc., are echoes of that outfit. So they're not the exact same outfit, but they're the same in different colors, right? So I thought that was interesting as well. And again, maybe something we can mention later. And he looks very distressed in this location. So I noted that. I paused it at 1 minute and 57 seconds in the video, and it kind of crushed me to like look at his face. Like, this location is a location of distress, definitely, especially in contrast to some of the other settings in the video. And then so we have the pink water setting. So that first comes in truly on the Do You Know Who You Are lyric. It looks like kind of the same outfit from the green room. It has this really strong light behind him in this scene in pink water, which, of course, I'm sure for many people is reminiscent of his album cover for his first album, which again, might be something that we mention again. So, and then something really interesting happens here where, we're kind of progressing through these settings. The next setting that occurs is kind of right before the chorus. A bunch of different locations are very quickly intercut. And so on that shine, right before the first chorus, and he kind of makes a similar motion in multiple of these settings. So you have like almost a falling down or pulling back motion that he's doing with his body, particularly in this new scene that hasn't come in really yet, which is him in the woods with this strong, strong spotlight on him in that Harris Reed light blue outfit. And so all of this kind of happens on the scream and the shine that follows it. So this is the location we see the least of, is him in the woods with that stark spotlight. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. And then we progress into him kind of on wires. So we see this twice. So it looks like kind of like the beach red, blue, and purple scene with that water and that kind of, it's mimicking that similar look. He's wearing the same outfit, that dark blue sparkly jumpsuit. So the first time we see it, he's on wires. He's like looking down at something. It was unclear to me what he was looking down at. Maybe it looked like a bag or a purse of some kind. It was kind of what it looked like to me, but it's a little unclear. And then in a bit later in the music video, we return to the same setting and he's elevated above another version of himself. This time you can't see the wires. So you just see him elevated and the wires are not visible to the eye. And, it looks like maybe the version of himself that he's elevated above is the boxer, like, because he's wearing the shorts with no shirt from the Lights Up director's cut image. And we will talk about that as the podcast progresses as well. But I just noted that as an idea for what that could be. So basically that's all of the locations in the video. I just kind of wanted to end with the final shot of the video, which is a return to the quote unquote orgy scene setting, which is just him making a funny face, which to me, it was kind of like this, like, oh, I just did that, like, face, like, about the video. So yeah, so that kind of, I just wanted to, take us all through and remind everyone of kind of the aesthetics of the video and kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where we might be going throughout the episode to kind of talk through these aesthetics and the relationships that the different settings in the video have with each other, how they connect, how they're kind of differentiated. And so, yeah, we'll come back and reference these images and these settings as we talk through the aesthetics and themes of the video. But yeah, that just kind of gives you a little introduction. So having done that, Gray, do you want to kind of talk us through your first watch experience of this video and kind of like your first reaction to it?
Yeah, so I found this because I saw Harry on Saturday Night Live. I think I found it either the day of or the day after, and it was alongside that big Rolling Stone profile that best buddy Rob Sheffield made.
Bestie Rob Sheffield.
Hey, bestie. So I loved it. I thought it was very gay, which was awesome because I love gay things, and I thought the music was great. I was pretty for quite some time. I was pretty no thoughts, head empty about it. I thought good for him is awesome. He's very beautiful, and yeah, that was it. How about you, Key?
What a contrast this will be with what you just said and what I'm going to say. So I, like I said, had kind of seen the social media build up to this, and I was like, I'll check it out. Why not? I think Harry Styles is cool. I'm not like a fan of his. I hadn't listened to his first album, but I had like generic positive feelings towards him. And I watched this video. I did catch it as it premiered. So I got to see that wonderful YouTube countdown, which I really do genuinely enjoy and look forward to whenever something new that I'm excited for happens. I love that YouTube countdown. And I watched the video like 40 times. Like 40 times is an exaggeration, but not as much of an exaggeration as I would wish. Like I was just completely like struck by it. Doesn't even truly articulate the way that I felt about it. Like I watched this video and I watched it many times, like too many times. I ran over to my roommate and I was like, you need to watch this video right now. And so I sat him down and we watched the video. And I was like, okay, good. And then I came back to my room and I watched it again by myself. And I was just blown away by it, completely blown away by it. There's just something that I couldn't articulate at the time that I'm going to try to articulate as we discuss the video throughout this episode. And I'll attempt to kind of unpack why it struck me the way that it did and why I was so affected by it on first watch. But I was just like, I watched it like I started out, I had my fingers over my eyes and I just like watched it through my own hands because it just like, some things, it just like feels too close and you just have to like put up some barrier between yourself and what you're watching, right? Is how it kind of started out. And then I watched it so many times and I just felt so many things and I did cry a little bit at the time again, throughout this episode, I'll attempt to unpack why that is and everything. But that was like my first experience with it, was I was just really blown away by it, really affected by it, really impacted by it. And that feeling that I felt at the time was so strong to me that I kept trying to get it back for a while after the video dropped. And I succeeded, right? So even now, when I watch the video or when I listen to the song even, it directly takes me back to that night and to the following week after that night where I listened to that song so many times. Like I've listened to Lights Up like that week of time after the song dropped. I must have listened to it like 200 times. I listened to it every day, multiple times a day. I was afraid I was going to make myself sick of it. And so for a while after the album came out, I listened to it less because I was like, I need to not get sick of the song. But I listened to it so much. I kept trying. I was like, I watched people's reaction videos to it. Mm-hmm. I listened to the song a bunch, rewatched the video a ton of times that week. My experience definitely at the beginning also was one of repetition.
Yeah, it's so funny, our contrasting experiences, because for this episode, I did a lot of the like research for the links and stuff and compiled things. Not that, obviously Key contributes to the outline and stuff too, but I dug up a lot of stuff for this episode, some of which is not even going to get used. And I ended up watching a lot of Lights Up music video reaction videos, and I was like, Key, this person had a good take. Have you seen it? And Key was like, I've seen all of them. I've seen everything.
I watched because I was like, part of the reason why I did that, right, is because at the time I had no friends that like cared. Like and part of that is also on me, where like I said I got my roommate to watch it, and he was like, okay, yeah, it's a good music video, it's cool. And I was like, okay, but you know, like you're not experiencing what I'm experiencing right now, you know? And I got my mom to watch it. I was trying, but I didn't have any friends that were like hardcore into Harry Styles at the time. And so because as I said, like this video got me into him, right? So like in the weeks after this, I was like, did a deep dive, listened to all his music, watched his music videos, read the different profiles of him that existed, whatever. And it was kind of like my intro to the fandom at that time. I was just desperately looking for other people's perspectives and opinions, and to see if other people had felt the same thing that I felt. And I got that in reaction videos, mostly from, I think, people who were Harry Styles fans who, like, I am so jealous. And I think in a way, this was the perfect introduction to him for me. And I think I needed this. Like, I needed this experience to make me a fan of his in the way that I'm a fan of his now. And so it couldn't have really happened any other way. But in a way, I'm still jealous of the people who experience this as fans, because I cannot fucking imagine.
I can't imagine. Oh feeling. My God. I can't.
After months of him kind of being dropped off the face of the earth, you know, as he's wont to do.
As we're experiencing right now.
Yeah. And for him to come back with this, like...
Oh, God, he's sick for this.
I can't imagine what that would be like. Like, being emotionally invested in him, right? And some version of this might happen again, right? With his next era album or whatever. But with this particular experience, with this rollout, with this music video, which I think is so special and is so well done, I cannot imagine being emotionally invested in him and his art as a fan and having months of nothing and then this happening. Like, it must have broke people's brains. Like, you know, like it must have been insane. Yeah. So I watched a lot of people's reactions because I saw that on their faces, right? You can see, I love so much when people watch this video and there's different things that happen in the video where each reaction video, people have the same reaction. And yeah, there's so many good ones out there where you just have people like gasping super loud and like covering their eyes and like all these things that the high drama of it all I very much enjoyed. So yeah,
when people
watched a lot of those.
When the dudes touch Harry and people clap and go Harry, that's me very much. Yeah. So Keith, do you want to segue into a conversation about general aesthetics? This is a general section of artistry. I will put a disclaimer on this section by saying there is not enough information out there about this music video. I searched through hell and high water to try and figure out like who a lot of the creative hands were behind this video and like their other work that they've done, and it was not made easy. And in many ways it was not made possible. So we're going to talk about the artistry and aesthetics of this music video, but unfortunately, like, we're not going to be able to be as thorough about it as we were, for example, for the Treat People with Kindness episode. So if you could bear with us for this to be a section that is not as thorough as that section. Vincent Haycock, if you're listening, come talk to us if you want, bestie.
Oh my God, I would love that. No, but so the reason why like we can't get into the kind of depth that we did in the Treat People with Kindness episode about the kind of the artistry and the things that go behind this video is because people just haven't been interviewed about it. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of information that we got post Treat People with Kindness music video where people discussed the costuming and they discussed the vision behind the video and the location, and that just doesn't exist for this. And I think that's also interesting because, and we'll get into this later in the episode as well, but Harry himself is vague in a certain way when he discusses this video. So I wonder, and maybe this is a good way to get into kind of the general aesthetics and tone of this video, where kind of the lack of information about it, I think, interestingly enough, contributes to the way that I feel about it and the type of existence in my brain that this video has. And so kind of the tone of the video for me, or like a summation of, I think, what the video might be trying to do is, whether as certain other music videos like the Treat People with Kindness video or the Adore You video are getting across a narrative, that there's a story that is happening in chronological order across time. This video is like a pure expression of a feeling, right? It's like, you know, if you think of the id, the ego, the superego, like this is an id video. It's like there's just this raw feeling that this, like a thought from someone's brain that this video is trying to get across. And so in that way, I can kind of understand why we haven't gotten that much information on it, because I almost think that might disrupt that impression, you know, of when you watch it. It's like this, I feel like anyway, and I'd be curious to see if you agree. Like when I watch it, I feel like, and this might sound dumb, but you know, I'm gonna say it anyway. Like I feel like Harry Styles had a thought, and what I'm seeing is the visual representation of that thought. And so I think if I knew more about what that process was, and he was more specific in the way that he articulated it, and the creatives behind it were more specific in the way that they articulated it, I think that might almost disrupt that for me, as the video acting as the direct translation of that thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like as this direct conduit. Yeah, no, definitely. It's very, very, very much about a feeling rather than something totally articulated, which I think is very much exemplified in, you know, there's kind of two states of being for Harry in the music video, right? He's in this party where nobody's talking, and he's brooding alone. There's the two separate,
right?
You know, two different ways of reacting to COVID. That also could be called. Harry was social distancing before you had to. It's great.
Socially distant king.
Socially distant king. Yeah, so I do think that, shitpost aside, that he really is trying to get across the feeling of being in a very intense experience and then reflecting on that experience and trying to figure out, you know, what that means for you. And also there's this whole overwhelming sense of, I think, of being seen in your private moments. So all of these experiences that he is having, whether he's brooding alone or he's in this, you know, very, we'll earn our explicit rating, sexual party, he is being ever watched by us and noting, even within the lyrics, that he, you know, he's lights up on him, he's being seen.
Exactly. I'm so glad you put it that way.
Yeah. And so it's very interesting, this thought of you know, this song I don't think is about fame, but it's not about fame. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of comes across.
Yeah, we'll get into that later as we talk about theme. Yeah, and I think, too, so many of the things that you just said will break down in further detail as we continue on, particularly when we discuss theme. But I think it kind of blends into some of the other aesthetic elements of the video as well, which I'm going to get into right now. So the first is lighting. So, you know, this song is called Lights Up, right? Which, like, kind of makes you think, of course, lighting is going to be a key aspect of this video. And of course it is, right? So lighting is, I feel, so strong and so key to the aesthetic elements of this video in a way that, like, a lot of times in music videos or in film or whatever, like, lighting is an element that exists that doesn't demand attention. Like, as you watch it, you kind of, you know, it's something that exists and that a lot of times contributes to the sense that the viewer gets, but you're not thinking about the lighting cue as you watch something, right? But particularly on rewatch, this video, every single setting that I kind of took us through earlier has a really strong lighting cue that's, like, very obvious. Whether it's the stark red light on him in the beach scene, whether that's the really strong white light behind him in the when he's in the pink water. There's just, like, the lighting in this video is just, like, very direct and very stark. And and then the green kind of light in the scene where he's in the party with everybody. And so that was just very pleasing to me in how it met the song.
And of course, we would be remiss without noting probably my favorite incident of light in the song. This expert editing Vincent Haycock is a genius. Key and I were discussing this. We've discussed this a bunch, but there's the part where he's in the Harris Reed outfit and the light comes up on him, and behind in the track, you might not even notice if you haven't listened to the song that much, but after the first shine in the track, Harry screams, and especially it's especially prominent if you detach the instrumentals from the vocals. I never noticed it until I did that. But Vincent noticed it, and he lined up the scream with right after the light hits him, which is so, I like the idea of him catching that minutiae that it took me forever to catch, and then applying that to his editing technique in the video is just, I love you.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, that's the strongest lighting cue in the video, so I'm glad you brought that up, is that really stark spotlight that hits him in that location in the woods. And and we can kind of bring this up throughout our discussion as we talk about the lyrics, but, you know, I think that has obvious connotations of when the light hits him in that scene, there's that scream in the track, and like I don't even think we need to explicitly get into the implications of that. Maybe we will later, but I think it's obvious like that. You know, as you experience it in that moment, there's like a clear and really interesting thing going on that's like a melding of all those artistic elements in that moment. So yeah, I think that probably is the strongest element of lighting in the video. But throughout, there's just such it pleases me so much that. And of course it's obvious, right? Like light being in the name of the song, in the lyrics itself, you know, shine, all these things that it would kind of blend with the aesthetics of the video as well. But it is just pleasing to me, you know, that all these elements kind of blend together. And with color as well, like we've talked throughout this podcast so far about how distinct the different settings are in their color palettes and how the lighting contributes to that as well, where you have that that green light in the kind of orgy setting, you have that blue light. That particular look I just haven't seen in any of Harry's other music videos, like that distinct aesthetic color palette, and so it's something that is one of my favorite aspects of this video, how beautiful it is to look at and how unique and distinct those different locations are. And so that was something that I definitely pulled out as I was thinking about artistic elements of this video as well.
Yes.
But yeah, so that mostly wraps it up for me. I think there's a lot that could be said about kind of the dreamlike quality of this video and how that kind of contributes to that like sense of id that I was talking about before, like that direct translation of feeling. Like I think that really strong aesthetic vision of the stark colors and the really strong lighting cues, I think contributes to that, right? That kind of hazy dreamlike quality that some of the publications had talked about before. And yeah, so I just wanted to make sure to mention that because I think that that's another way that the kind of aesthetic elements of the video work towards that that wider tone.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to talk about costuming, hair, and makeup. One of the main pieces of information that we have about the costuming for the Lights Up music video is this article from GQ where they interviewed Harris Reed about him creating the Lights Up outfit for Harry. So it's just a fun story, and we'll zip through it a little bit, but I just felt like if people hadn't been exposed before, it'd be really fun to talk about this. So basically, Harris Reed was spending time in New York, and Harry Lambert got in contact to say, hey, I don't know if you're up for this, but Harry would love you to do something for next week. All top secret, of course. All Harry Lambert sent were 2 Pantone colors of blue with a note. It needs to be in the shade of blue. I can't tell you too much else. And at the time that Harris received this message, he was very much enjoying himself in NYC with some alcohol. But he wasn't drunk, he says. But he asked the barman for a napkin, and he was handed this piece of paper, and he did a chicken scratch drawing and sent it back to Harry right away. And he was like, this is perfect. So they made the piece literally in 3 days, kind of inspired by David Bowie's Dog Days, but more sparkly and upbeat and less linen and long hair, basically. And so he tried on himself as a model, and Harry texted him, it fits, it works. So I just think that is just a very nice story. I don't know, it doesn't add super huge amount of commentary other than I really like the note that it was partly inspired by David Bowie, but a lot of Harris Reed looks are, because Harris Reed and I are the same person. We both love Mick Jagger and David Bowie.
Yeah, no, I love this look. I think that I find it interesting that this is the only look that we have any information on, and it's the look that's in the video the least. And I also find it cool that this is the look that Harry chose for his social media profiles at the time. I don't know if he's since changed it, but I know for a long time after this video came out, that's what he had as his like Instagram profile picture and stuff like that. So clearly they all really loved this look, and I think, yeah, it works super well in the video. And as we kind of go through these other looks, we can talk about how they work together. But yeah, I liked hearing the behind the scenes story about this look as well.
Yeah. So one thing particularly that he noted was all of the outfits in this music video are reflective. So they sparkle, or they have some sort of glittery element or shimmery element or some sort of sheen to them. So like maybe they're see-through and they billow or something like that. So the first outfit that we talk about is the Harris Reed outfit. So there's this designer, and I was saying to Key, oh God, I'm going to have to pronounce this on air. So I think it's Lajo Schmidl.
Sure. Why not?
Lazo Schmidl. Yeah, so he layered a tulle bodysuit under this, only it's like a custom one. It's in blue. So I think that's neat. It's very pretty. I wish that in the music video that we got more of a look at this outfit, because you actually don't get that good of a look at it.
No, you don't. I find that interesting though. It's like a little tease. It's a little taste. I find that really interesting. That particular location, I think, is so significant to the video because you see it at, to me, probably the video's most striking moment, which is that moment when the first chorus comes in, when he does that falling motion that I talked about before. And so, yeah, I appreciate that even though we didn't get such a great look, time-wise of this outfit in the video, that it was, I think, the most important one, or at least, the argument could be made that that's the case.
Something that I find very interesting about this outfit's placement in the video itself, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, and most Harrys probably know, but if you don't, and this is your first exposure to Harris Reed, welcome to the podcast. Harris Reed specializes particularly in gender fluid fashion, and I find it really interesting that in this scene, when you're first introduced to Harry in this outfit, you can kind of only see it from like the hips up, and it kind of looks like he's wearing a shirt and maybe like a skirt, or it's a dress. But then when the light hits him, he steps back and you actually see that it's a whole ensemble that has pants too. So there's very much playing with that fluidity in that shot with the outfit. I like that so much.
I do too, and the silhouette, I think, kind of speaks to that as well, because it has that kind of like A-line waist. Is that what you would say? Like,
I think so.
That waist at the center of the body instead of at the hips, which is what quote unquote like male clothing, like massive quotations around that, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, I would think, that the outfit tapers in at the waist of what would be typical of like quote unquote women's clothing, that waist in the center of the body, and then comes outward from there to kind of emphasize that, which I really like about the outfit as well.
Yeah, it's cool. It really emphasizes the ambiguity of the outfit, and in a lot of ways, like seeing him like this, it really does help start off saying, okay, this is part of what I want to do in my fashion model career too, like, and it's all part of this, this is a big, part of, like, I think a lot of people talk about, Lights Up, and they are very fixated on the orgy scene because it is quite striking, but I do think that, like, the video itself talks to, it seems like a lot of internal pressures, a lot of internal thoughts that he's having about, like, the kind of performer that he wants to be and the kind of, like, public figure that he wants to be. And I do think that, like, including fashion into that and sort of showing, like, this is also another part of me that I want to share with the world, I think that that's cool too.
Yeah, I think you could kind of view it as an aesthetic statement of intent.
Good words.
This era as well.
Yes. Okay, so we have Harry on the back of this motorcycle in this Lajo Schmidl chiffon shirt. Yeah. and custom Gucci trousers and boots. I really like this chiffon shirt. I think it's nice.
Yeah, it's very flowy, right, in the way. So it's made so that when he wears it on the back of the motorcycle, he can kind of wave his arms around, and the wind kind of takes the shirt around and kind of emphasizes the freedom of that scene. And I think, these white boots that he has on, he wore a lot at the beginning of this era. They're kind of like these heeled boots that I think are really cute.
The heel on those is really high.
I know. Like, when you look at the photo of him on the motorcycle, I'm like,
holy shit.
Damn, it is a high-heeled boot. I don't know how comfortable it would be on the back of a motorcycle wearing those, but...
I don't know. I guess I didn't realize until right now. That's like at least like a 3-inch heel.
Yep.
Harry, what do you got to be taller for? What are you doing? You've already got height. Save some for everybody else.
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't exactly say that I'm short, but yeah, add a couple inches to Harry, and I definitely would be looking up at him if we ever had a conversation.
Okay, so the next look is this custom Gucci navy sequin ensemble. He wore something like this when he performed on SNL in the song. Yeah.
Yep, very reminiscent of that.
Yeah, this is a cool outfit.
This one in particular is like that reflective thing that I was saying before. Like, obviously that brings to mind the name of the song and kind of some of the themes that we'll discuss later. In terms of like all of the reflective elements of this song. But yeah, this outfit I really, really like. Really liked it when he wore a version of it. It's not the same thing, but a version of it on SNL. And yeah, I like how it. Yeah, just how it reflects that really stark red light that's in this particular scene in the video that I think is really cool.
It seems like it would be uncomfortable to wear that in the water like he did.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought about that too. He's like probably sitting in sand and there's water. So not only is it like water uncomfortable, but it's also the sand. Yeah, I can't imagine that this outfit aged great after he took it off to do this scene, but it was worth it.
It was worth it. Okay. So then our final look that we're talking about is Harry in the suspenders thing. That's both reminiscent of what he wore in Jules Holland and reminiscent of the Fine Line album cover.
Yeah, so this is where, like, again, like I said, I think us not knowing very much about this video kind of does help contribute to the fact that it just feels like a thought that just was like dumped into like my own synapses or whatever. But at the same time, I would love to hear a little bit more from Harry Lambert about the different looks in this video, because I think like that is so interesting to me that not only is it a statement of intent and gives a little peek into kind of one of the most defining looks of this album cycle and of Harry's career, that Fine Line album look, which is so striking. I think also there's a really interesting tie to theme here. And I keep saying we're going to get into things later. I think it's because all these things are so tied together, right? So it's difficult to know when to get into these discussions of greater themes and stuff. But I think that this outfit, we can't ignore the fact that this is his performance outfit. If we're interpreting, I think this is pretty clear, right? That scene where he's like very distressed is a green room. It looks like that to me, and I think that's what it's meant to convey, and that would imply that this is his performance outfit.
This is performance anxiety.
I think that has a connotation that means something that I don't think you mean when you say that.
No, but like I didn't mean it that way. I mean like anxiety to perform. This is not a chance this is not an opportunity that we're trying to earn our explicit rating, listeners.
But I think like what I mean to say is that I find that connection to be very interesting, that he would wear versions of this outfit to perform his first performance of the song, right, which is on Jules Holland, I believe.
Yeah.
To echo that performance look from this video in the Fine Line album cover, that all those looks would be united, and that this would be the look that would represent that kind of distress at pre or post performance. I find extremely interesting, that connection between if this is the look that's meant to represent performance, artistic performance, whatever, that stage look, that then is directly made true in real life outside of the artistic expression of the music video through these different live performances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into a conversation about theme, we thought that it might be nice to just read off the lyrics to the song So, unlike many of the things that I read off on this podcast, I'm going to attempt to be as serious as possible. So, putting on my reading glasses, pulling this up in pretend that I've written this down in a great notebook. I'm not. I'm looking at this on a computer. But, so these are the lyrics to Lights Out. What do you mean, I'm sorry, by the way, never coming back down? Can't you see I could but wouldn't stay, wouldn't put it like that? What do you mean, I'm sorry, by the way, never coming around? It'd be so sweet if things just stayed the same. And then, la da da da. I'm not good for this serious. Okay, we're gonna get through this. All the lights couldn't put out the dark, running through my heart. Lights up and they know who you are. Know who you are. Do you know who you are? Shine, step into the light. Shine, so bright sometimes. Shine, I'm not ever going back. And then he repeats that a few times. What do you mean, I'm sorry, by the way, never going back now? It'd be so sweet if things just stayed the same. All the lights couldn't put out the dark, running through my heart. Lights up and they know who you are. Know who you are. Do you know who you are? And those are the lyrics to Harry Styles' Lights Up.
Yeah, I'm glad that you decided to read that because it reminds me of a few things that we didn't say throughout the rest of this podcast that I think are kind of helpful to get into. So first of all, it's the fact that the song is like really short. Mm-hmm. And the structure of it is very atypical. And so normally, right, in a song you have like verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and a general structure like that, and that this song is atypical in the way that it exists, and that Harry said, in an interview, I think pretty early on, that he wrote, I don't know how long this song is, like 2 minutes, like less than 2 minutes. He was like, he said to his label, like, okay, I have like a 2-minute single, like, you're welcome. Like his attitude, which I find amusing. But yeah, so you remind me as you read the lyrics that the lyrics of the song are atypical too, in that like there's no new lyrics. Once we get like halfway through the song, it's repeating that same refrain over and over again.
Except for this one edit here where instead of never going back down, it's never going back now.
Yeah.
That's an alteration.
Yeah, I like those little things. There's little alterations throughout the song, but yeah, so something that it kind of reminds me of is that thing that I said before about this music video feeling kind of like a distillation of a feeling. And the song feels that way to me too. I think particularly with some of the lyrics in the beginning that feel like kind of like this one-sided conversation. I remember hearing a version of this. There's like, I forget where this lives. So, if listeners, if you have that information, feel free to send it to us. There's this version of the song that lives somewhere that's like a demo version where it has different lyrics, I think, at this opening part. And I almost think that it wouldn't even matter so much what the lyrics to this part were, Mm-hmm. They're very not distinct. They're very, it's just very id, right? It's not like, particularly at the beginning of the song, right? There's a couple lyrics that we're going to get into in a second that are like very direct, but most of the lyrics of the song are not direct, and they kind of live out there, right?
They feel like half of a phone call, like when you're passing by somebody and they're like on the phone and you only hear half of their conversation. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean? Can't you see I could but wouldn't?
Yeah, and it works too with this kind of uncertainty that you feel from the beginning of the music video. And the kind of the reason why we wanted to talk about this song and the lyrics in the context of the music video itself is because to me, this music video is so deeply tied into my feelings about the song. And so when I listen to the song, I think of the music video. Mm-hmm. I saw the music video for the first time without having heard the song before, right? So it's impossible to extract my thoughts and feelings and opinions about this song from my experience of watching the video. And so that is kind of why we wanted to discuss it in this way. And I think that he knew that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's why it was released in the way that it was. And I think that that's meant to be part of it. So the two things, the lyrics of the song, the music of the song, the video itself, all three of those things are working together here. It's not... Does that make sense? So it's very hard to extract them from each other for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to hop into a conversation about theme. So we have a lot to say about theme because there's a lot going on here. But the three main conversations that we're going to have are the themes of freedom of expression and openness, the themes of self-reflection, sense of self, vulnerability, and the theme of queerness. So, Key, do you want to start kicking off a conversation about freedom of expression and openness as it applies to the song and music video?
Yeah, totally. And we'll discuss what we mean by queerness, as we discuss that theme, and then as well throughout we'll kind of discuss the weaving of these things together, because I think, even I don't even have to say it. I think, just saying those themes like freedom of expression and openness, self-reflection and sense of self, and queerness, the thematic through line between all of those three ideas is very present, right? So all these things are working together, but, we separate it out in this way to kind of, hopefully have some useful discussions of them individually. But yeah, so in terms of freedom of expression and openness, what this kind of means, right? You could get into, clothing in terms of freedom of expression here, but kind of my thought process behind including this theme is mostly of artistic expression. So a lot of people have discussed what this video might mean in the context of like fame and interpreting it through the lens of this song and this video being about fame. And I think to me, that direct one-to-one analogy doesn't so much speak to me as the music video and the song speak to a general idea of artistic expression and an artist trying to communicate with an audience, and like all the things that are part and parcel with that. So, we talked before in the recap of this video and the artistic elements of the video that one of the scenes in the video looks like it takes place in a green room, which is, a place that performers would get ready or wind down from a performance. And so right there, that brings to mind that performance element of this song. And another thing that works together with that is the spotlight. So there's a very, very clear spotlight in the scene in the video where Harry is in the Harris Reed outfit. And that's an element of performance as well, right? So you have these like particular artistic elements in the music video that remind you of, things that would happen at a concert, or things that immediately bring to mind, at least for me, a musical artist, right? And so kind of to discuss those in a little bit more depth, like we have the green room scene, which is clearly the saddest location in the video, right? Like this is where he's kind of like the most distressed. So what this kind of brings to mind for me, the spotlight and the green room together, is this lyric in this song that I think is the most direct lyric in the song. So we said before, the kind of half conversation aspect of lyrics of the song is like, it's not so directly interpretive. It's a little unclear. It's a little fuzzy. It's a little dreamlike. It's a little hazy. But this particular lyric, like all the lights couldn't put out the dark running through my heart, is like a very, very obvious and direct lyric, right? And so this, again, is a lyrical reference that kind of leads to this interpretation of the song being about fame. So to me, anyway, like all the lights couldn't put out the dark running through my heart. What that makes me think of is like a performer on a stage. Everybody has their lights up, and the performers like there's like this sense of like, that you'd think that a successful artist or that, a famous person or whatever would be standing on stage and would be getting that positive feedback from a crowd, that like makes them happy, or it like fixes their problems, or it like, there's that idea, right? Like, how could you be struggling? How could you be sad when all the things in your life are going right, when you're successful, when you are doing this thing in your career that makes you happy? But at least what that lyric means to me is that like, that's not the case. Like, you're performing on a stage and you feel something, right? That you have a problem that needs to be fixed. You're feeling sad. Something's going on internally, and that audience is not able to fix that for you, right? Is kind of what that lyric means to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the description of all the lights couldn't put out the dark running through my heart, I think that the description of all implies many performances too. So I think that there's like a good sense of a passage of time in that lyric as well. This very intense feeling inside of yourself that you're just not able to show, or like that you feel is just ever present even though you're trying to work. Like I guess as a queer person myself, when I this is my personal interpretation as to me. I'm not saying anybody else feels this way, but I know that this lyric, hits me particularly hard as somebody who is queer myself and has dealt with all sorts of issues, related to like being closeted at work, or like trying to figure out how to tell your family or your friends stuff, and like trying to distract yourself from other things. I do think that this is a lyric that I've seen, resonate with myself and a lot of my friends as well. This sort of concept that hiding yourself really weighs on you.
Yeah, and I think that kind of blends into a discussion that we'll have later, about the queerness in this video. I think definitely you can look at this lyric in that light, but I think it also exists outside of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why it's just
the lyric isn't so much specific, right? Yeah, I think that's a really affecting personal connection to what this lyric is saying. But I think like there's something, I kind of enjoy the ambiguity that exists behind the lyric as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, a lot of it's vague. So he never said you should interpret it this way. That's just how I personally see my own brain in it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes total sense. But I think too, so the kind of to bring in some of these different ideas about the artistic elements that we talked about before and how that kind of blends into the green room scene and kind of this discussion of artistic expression is there's this contrast between interior and exterior scenes in the music video, where the interior scenes, so I think the green room in particular, is like the saddest scene. He's looking very distressed. And then the exterior scenes, which are the orgy scene, the motorcycle scene, are like just happier scenes and are freer. So I think that's interesting. And I don't know if that means that the video is trying to say anything in particular about this concept of interior and exterior, as much as it is an artistic way to convey kind of the things that they're going for. So you have like this isolation in the interior scenes and this freedom and community in the exterior scenes, which I find to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know, when we talk about performance and when we talk about that particular lyric in the song, which to me so clearly speaks to some of the things that the song is conveying and discussing, like it's not even so much freedom of expression as it is this tension that artists experience, right? Of sharing and what do you share, of being watched and being seen, of expressing something internal and having that be interpreted by other people through watching it, through listening to it, through experiencing it, There's that tension that exists in the song, which I find to be very interesting and very meta. And like you talked about in, I think, a very smart way earlier in this episode, that is so present in the video. This sense as you're watching it that it is about being watched and that the video itself is in dialogue with the fact that it is being viewed and being interpreted at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that also, like, while we're talking about freedom of expression, I do think that I would like to revisit the concept that we talked earlier with fashion about this video. I think that it's interesting. The song itself wasn't pushed to radio, so it really was more for like fans and that sort of thing. And I think it's really interesting that essentially that this video is a statement of intent for the new era, and really like trying to show this is what's to come. This is how I intend to, some of the themes that I intend to explore throughout the era, some of the things that I intend to wear throughout the era, and how this era is going to be different from the last one. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's interesting to me, that the fact that it's different from the last one, because I think maybe that can lead us into a discussion of our next theme, which is self-reflection. I think and vulnerability, because I think this video marks such a distinct difference from his previous two music videos, which are for Kiwi and Sign of the Times. And I think this is a much more internal video, and it's a much more vulnerable video. So both Kiwi and Sign of the Times are kind of about spectacle for me, both of those videos. And there's like a big concept to it, and I think Sign of the Times could be seen as an internal song, but it's a very dramatic song. And so the video kind of speaks to that. And so this is such a distinct difference from that. And so that too, I kind of think, at the top of the episode, we discussed what must it have been like to have been a fan of Harry Styles at this time when this dropped, because it is such an interesting artistic work, but at the same time, it's also just so different from what people had seen from him before. And I think when I talked before about, watching, sounds different.
Yeah, it sounds different, but even just, my experience of like watching this video and like feeling taken in by it, but also a little, watching it through my fingers, it's like, it's very personal. It's like very vulnerable. And the video conveys this in a variety of ways, but, that's a distinct aspect of it. You don't get the sense watching either of his previous music videos, as much as I like them. They're not internal. They're not vulnerable. That's not what they're trying to accomplish. And so that's like one of my favorite things about this video. And I find it interesting too, in dialogue with the previous thing we talked about performance and expression, that the video would be about performance and be so internal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's just like a lot of really cool moments that show that this song is about self-reflection. I think that you can get it pretty clearly from the themes of contrast that we discussed earlier, and how there's a lot of juxtaposition of the interior scenes of him seeming, pretty stressed out with the more free exterior things, almost as though he's like having certain experiences, whether it's going to a sexy dance party or, riding on a motorcycle, without a helmet. Please be safe, Harry. But, thinking on himself and like what it means to be the kind of person who does that sort of thing. Because, I think that when you move into new stages of life, there's a lot of, whether it's as an artist or like, whatever, transition stage of life you're at, I think that you have a lot of questions about like, okay, if I did this thing, what kind of person does that mean that I am now? Like if I moved cities, what type of person am I that I'm the type of person who moves cities? You know what I mean? And I think that that's really reflected in the juxtaposition here, with the party and the motorcycle and that sort of thing. Him really asking like, okay, so do that. What does that mean for me,
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I don't know if I would have thought about it like that. Yeah, so I think those scenes reflect that in an interesting way. I think the one that is the most obvious to me as an example of self-reflection, right, is him on the wire. So you have this like really direct example of Harry raised up looking at himself in a different outfit, right? So that's like very obvious, like that visual is so obvious that it's another one when we talk about this video, like streaming his thoughts directly into your brain. Like that's just an image where like what that means and it speaks for itself, right?
Yeah, the image of him like yelling at himself in the mirror too.
Yeah, mirror is another example of that. So obvious visual that is meant to indicate self-reflection is him literally looking at himself in the mirror, right? It's like the most obvious way you can convey that. Water is also reflective, right? As you're watching him in that scene with the purple background and in the dark blue reflective jumpsuit, you can see a reflection of him there. So all of this kind of pulls through, and I think there's another meta element to that in the kind of the pink water aspect of it that reminds everyone, of course, of his first album, which is that not only is it like literally self-reflective and that the water is reflecting images of himself and the mirror is reflecting images of himself, but the video is reflective of his artistic past. So I think that's kind of cool, and it's not just an examination of self in a visual way, but
also in an artistic way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like as we talk about the fact that this is one of the most personal, I think probably the most personal thing that he's ever put out, I think of the breaks for the camera that happen particularly in the orgy scene. So there's this interesting idea, right, that like, and this is discussed a lot, whenever Harry puts out a song that can be interpreted in a certain way. I think this particularly in the discussion of the song Medicine, but I think about it in this song as well. And I understand why people who work in media discuss things this way, because I think it is prudent to be careful in the way that you discuss things like this. But there's always this discussion of like, is Harry talking about himself? When Harry writes a lyric and there's a narrator of the song, should we, the audience, assume that him, the artist, means himself? Or could he be narrating the song from the perspective of someone else? And I think there's obviously no easy answer to that. And it brings up all complex questions about the artist and the celebrity and like the person themselves and their image as an artist, right? There's all those things are in dialogue with each other. But in this particular context, like the breaks to the camera, to me, like this is supposed to be him. Like you watch this video and you're supposed to understand that the figure at the center of this video is him. And there's all these different ways that this video conveys that, but one of the obvious ones to me is his breaks for the camera, whether that's looking directly at the camera, whether that's winking at the camera, whether that's, you know, smiling to himself and laughing a little bit at how ridiculous the situation that he's in is. Like, all these things to me are like, it's conveying to us that there is no character that is meant to be in this video. It's not like the Adore You music video where, yes, there's like a relationship between the quote unquote peculiar boy in the Adore You music video and Harry. Like, obviously there's a relationship there, but there's a separation there as well. You don't, that video has a separation between Harry Styles and the peculiar boy credited in that music video, right? And I think it's similar with some of his other videos. And so this video, that doesn't exist. Like, the audience, I believe, is supposed to take from this that this is from Harry Styles, the artist, and that the central figure of this music video is him, right? And so I think that that's really interesting and really effectively conveyed by all those things that we discussed before.
Yeah, absolutely. Very same hat with how he eventually started pointing at himself when he sang Medicine.
Yeah.
Same energy. Yes, me.
Yeah, and I think, like, again, like, I understand, like, this isn't a criticism of the media, really.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it makes sense to ask these questions, but I think, like, in certain artistic works, like, he's telegraphing, like, at least we, the audience, are supposed to take this from that this is him, this as the central figure of this music video, which is another way in which it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because there isn't that separation between a character or a different version of himself and the audience.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that... Do you have more to say about the theme of self-reflection?
Oh, I guess just that, like, obviously the lyrics of the song also are clearly conveying that with the "Do you know who you are?"
Yes, yeah.
lyric, which is at the center of this whole thing, right? There's a reason why he chose to put that in the posters as an introduction to the song. There's a reason why the website was "Do you know who you are?" Like, and the website was telling you different things about yourself as you put it in. Like, this is so clearly meant to be a questioning and a reflection on himself and identity and all of these things. And I think, like, that lyric so clearly is about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That website, I will say, is not accurate. It hasn't told me that I'm gay once. Like,
can you imagine if we're having this serious discussion about theme, but I am just very taken with the idea that, like, you go to the "Do you know who you are" website and you put in your name and it'd be like, Greg, you are gay.
Yeah, Greg, you are gay. Love H.
It's so amusing to me. That would be so iconic.
I'm so sorry. Okay, well, speaking of gay, our final theme for this song that we would like to discuss is queerness. Now, we here at We Blame Harry Styles Incorporated are not trying to use this section to, like, throw a label on Harry or, you know, be invasive in his personal life. We just want to talk about, like, what he is directly trying to say, and also about how the media received this message, and then also sort of we'll tie it up also a little bit later, talking about how he followed up talking about this, because it is very interesting.
Yeah, but I think, to speak to what you just said, I don't think that you can honestly discuss this video without talking about queerness, right? So I'll say that, right? Because we discussed that. And I wanted to say this earlier, but, you know, if you saw, Gray tweeted this the other day, like, we were going to record this a couple days ago, and we discussed how we wanted to do it, and we ended up having, like, a 3-hour-long, like, Zoom conversation just about this video and all the things wrapped up in it, right? Because there's so much, obviously, and we're clearly not going to get to say everything here, but this is one of those things that it can be difficult to talk about, and at the same time, we can't just ignore it because it is central to what this video is, what this video means to both of us, and the way that the video was received by the public. And so...
Yeah. So I think that, I guess, to lead in, I guess, why we decided to choose queerness as a major theme. So, other than, you know, I guess we could say the obvious, but you know, a lot of people will say the obvious. I want to show my work. So when we were doing initial preparation for this episode, I was doing a lot of, obviously, like I said earlier, back reading, and it's every single article that I opened up, it was, fans think that Harry Styles has come out on Coming Out Day, October 11th. It was all of them. I said, keep all of the articles say this thing, and he was like, yeah, I know. So
yeah, I mean, I was there for when it happened, and he was there for those articles at that time. Yeah,
it really is, looking at it retrospectively, a whole hell of a lot. And so let's talk maybe a little bit about why it was received that way, and like what it says that was clearly a statement of. It was clearly something that he wanted you to get out of it. What are your feelings about that, Key?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I think it's much more complicated than that. So,
I agree.
So like this idea that this is a coming out video and that's what this is meant to convey, I think is not entirely accurate. And I think that's because it is tied into all these things we discussed before. At the same time, like, while I don't think that this video is that is its direct purpose, as we've said before about how the video is in dialogue with the fact that it is a video that's being interpreted, that the figure at the center of this video is being seen. The video is very knowledgeable, I think, about itself and the images that are present within it. And I think Harry, as the artist behind the video that released the video, was knowledgeable about how it would be received.
Right.
And so while I don't necessarily think that the purpose of this video was to produce that reaction, I think, of course, he knew that this video would produce that reaction. And so I think that's part of the reason why I'm okay with discussing it in this manner, because I think it's pretty obvious that he's aware of the fact of the way that the video presents itself and that it's going to bring up these conversations. Does that make sense?
Right. You see him grinding between three dudes and you're a little curious. You're like, hey, that's three guys. Good for him. You know? I'm not jealous. Okay, so yeah, I do think that it's interesting, because I wonder if any conversation that would have been had around the video, like interviewing anybody who made it, would have like expanded the conversation beyond that. I would say that like one of the things that frustrated me doing this retrospectively was specifically that people have like a limited idea of what it means to make a queer work of art. Like, something that has frustrated me is, and I think we even talked about this in our intro episode, but this concept that the conversation begins and ends with, is or is not Harry Styles queer? And I think that that's really not what he's trying to make you get out of it. Like I do think that he could assume that that would be something that you would take away from it, but that's not really what the video is. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I think I feel, I guess, a tad complicated about it, because there are clear choices, I think, particularly in the timeline of the video's release, that are not accidental. Or maybe they are, but if they are, like, wow, that's a coincidence. And so I guess I think that this video clearly is about things that so tie deeply into the queer experience. Everything we've talked about before: self-reflection, expression of self, identity. You can't say those words without thinking of that, you know? And I think the decision to have one of the main locations in the video be a scene in which a bunch of people of all genders are dancing with each other and
cuddling each other,
no shirts on,
cuddling each other.
Yeah, cuddling. I don't know about that wording, whichever publication said that, but that is a clear choice that I think it's in there, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, I think I agree with you in that this video isn't like a direct one-to-one, this is exactly what the video is for, and this is exactly what it's trying to say. But it's in there.
Yes, that is what I was trying to get at, is I guess what I mean, and maybe I didn't phrase it correctly before, apologies, but yeah, I guess what I mean is I was a bit frustrated by the concept of, if this is, a quote unquote, basically phrase it as a coming out, it's not a coming out statement. If anything, it's like a letter, it's a communication. And I feel like, what it seemed that a lot of mainstream publications seem to take away from it was they really wanted it to just be a check the box, yes, no. You know what I mean? And I think that there's so much more here to think about and unpack. Currently, I mean, obviously, because currently at the time of recording, we are at hour 1 and 57 minutes. So, what's good, Cosmopolitan? But yeah, I definitely think that, like, too, like, I don't necessarily think that when it's talking about queerness that it's talking only about, you know, the checking of the box, yes, no. It's also clearly about his self-expression and, like, you know, his collaboration with other queer people, like the Lazo Schmidl and Harris Reed and Gucci are all, you know, he's wearing, like, more feminine fashions made by other queer people. Like, it's very much, queerness, like, runs through this video. Like, it just does. And
yeah, 100%.
And I feel like, you know, when you're looking at this as like a yes/no situation, you're just missing a lot of it.
You are, and I think I completely 100% agree with you.
Also, can I just say, like, to everybody who wrote all those articles, he has given a yes/no. He sang Medicine, and he said, boys, yes, girls, yes. we already have it.
Medicine does exist, and everybody forgets about it every 3 months, and that is a source of frustration to us all. But, you know, whatever. That's the situation that we're all in. The media has a terrible memory when it comes to, you know, statements that he's made in the past. But I think there is a tendency and a want to, make that one-to-one direct, this is what this is statement about a lot of things that he's done. Mm-hmm. And I think you can see that, too, with the media's reaction to, you know, for example, Paper Magazine's write-up of Watermelon Sugar, which was like, oh, God. That basically was like, oh, you had men and women in the Lights Up video, and now you have a video with mostly women? This is contradictory to me. Which, like, I think is a complete... It speaks to what you're saying about this tendency to interpret these things as very direct, one note. This is what I'm saying about myself, and it's very clear. And that is, like, completely the antithesis as to what these things are meant to accomplish. And, like, I think an over reading and an over analyzation of the messages and themes that are going on in these pieces of art, which I'm just very frustrated that tendency exists within the media anyway.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like, and that also gets into the fact that the media just cannot handle people who are attracted to more than one gender. They really struggle.
Yeah.
They're having a struggle party.
Definitely.
Biphobe struggle party. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
But I think, like, when we talk about, you know, freedom of expression and openness, self-reflection and sense of self, vulnerability, queerness, like, all these things are wrapped up within each other, right? Mm-hmm. I think the lyrics help to distill these themes in a really meaningful way. So we've talked about before, right? All the lights couldn't put the dark running through my heart. We haven't so much gotten into this lights up and they know who you are idea. Know who you are, do you know who you are? Which I think, you know, I've talked before a little bit in this episode how I interpret that all the lights couldn't put out the dark running through my heart lyric as like a, you know, maybe a performer's on stage and they're seeing the lights of the audience and that doesn't fix what they're feeling. That doesn't fix whatever darkness or sadness or whatever you choose to interpret that being, you know, within them, whatever they're struggling with, whatever's going on inside of them. And so if you carry that through into this next lyric, like lights up and they know who you are, that I find very interesting from a performance perspective as well, about like you as an artist have through your art conveyed something personal about you that now the audience knows about you and that they're going to take that and interpret that and they're going to see you in that way, you know? And then when you follow that up by know who you are, do you know who you are? Maybe the audience is taking something away from a performance and coming away with some conclusion about you as the performer that you don't even know about yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, it speaks to this really interesting idea, I think, of agency and the lack of agency that artists have over how their work is interpreted. Mm-hmm. That I think ties into what everything you were just saying about the ways in which this video was interpreted and people's desire to read a one-to-one conclusion in so many of these things, when in reality there's like so much more going on, that like the lyrics of the song directly speak to that in a really interesting way, you know, like what it must feel like to finish a performance or to put art into the world and feel like people are coming away from that understanding something about you that you might not even understand or that you might wonder about and have questions about, you know? Mm-hmm. And so there's something very extremely vulnerable about that, about communicating that idea to an audience, right? There's a very meta aspect to that idea about like if that's what's happening with this video. Like I don't need to get too in the weeds about it, because then it becomes like turtles all the way down, you know. But
I love when you say that.
But like that's what he's doing here, and he's explaining what he's doing while he's doing it, right? Like not only is it I'm going to dance with a bunch of people of a variety of genders in this video, and you as the audience see that and you interpret that and you pick up on that, and that's meant to be seen and interpreted because it's within the video itself. But then at the same time, it's this idea about like, I'm going to make myself vulnerable by sharing a part of myself with you as the viewer. And, you know, think about how he was feeling in that green room, how scared he was in that green room, right? And how happy and satisfied he seemed or was on that motorcycle within that throng of people. Like there's like, it's so hard to articulate this. And this is why like we struggled preparing for this episode, because this song is not direct. This song and this video are not direct. There's not like, you aren't meant to come away with this with a one-to-one conclusion. And so it's difficult to sum up kind of all the things that are behind it. And so of course I'm going to struggle articulating it, but there is this like very affecting, vulnerable thing of putting something out there in the world that's an artistic expression of self or feeling or thought, and understanding that people are going to come away with that, with something about you that you might not even understand about yourself. And I think like is what I'm gonna sum all this up in this big long thing that I'm saying here, not to, you know, go on a huge tirade or whatever, but to say that I think this is why this affected me so deeply, right, when I first watched it, which is like, you know, and I know I wasn't the only one who felt that way, is that this could have been a very direct coming out video, right? Like, if he wanted to do that, he would have done it. Like, it wouldn't have been difficult for him to do. But instead, what this was someone revealing themselves to the viewer, you know, revealing themselves to me, revealing themselves to you, opening up this thought, this feeling, and communicating it to you. And at the same time, communicating that process of communicating that thing is scary. And
then it's also, I think that one thing that I get that we haven't mentioned yet is something that we've talked about in conversation a lot, which is that I feel like one of the messages that I get from this song is also, it's really a feeling of self-discovery, and like the concept that this isn't a journey that's just over. You know what I mean? Like, very much like this feels like, it doesn't feel like the end of something. It just feels kind of like, I don't know, the middle of the self-discovery section where you're, you know, sharing a part of yourself with other people, but, you know, whatever that may be in your life, but you're not totally to the other side yet, you know? And you may never be to the other side, whatever that may be.
Yeah, and I think the lyrics that follow up that section, right, which is that after the Do You Know Who You Are section, we get step into the light, shine, so bright sometimes, shine, I'm not ever going back, is what follows that. And he repeats that over and over again. So I think absolutely there is an element of, you know, happiness, of self-discovery, of freedom within this video that I don't think so much represents an answer to a question as much as it represents like the freedom of choosing to open yourself up in that way.
Well, and I guess it's not really an answer to a question, because the whole song ends on a question.
Right. No, that's a good point.
The song, in many ways, literally asks more questions than it answers.
Yeah, that's a funny way to put it, but you know what I mean? Like, there's this, like, when we spoke before about the spotlight hitting him on the scream in the song, right? It's this direct, like, so bright sometimes, like that moment of putting yourself out there, that moment of performance. And I'm using this kind of as a metaphor, right? Because it exists literally because Harry Styles is an artist and a performer. But there's a metaphor there as well in terms of like personal expression and identity and, you know, letting people into your world and telling people about yourself, that it can be uncomfortable. And that sharing bits of yourself and letting people know about yourself can be uncomfortable. That moment in the music video particularly, I think, speaks to, but that there's a clear statement in the song of like, I'm not ever going back. Like that there's a choice. There's a choice to be open. And it's so funny because he said that so many times in the press for this album as well, right? Like, you know, you could count on, I'm trying to think of the expression, like how many times did he say?
Bowling with the bumpers out.
Right, which we got kind of tired of as the interviews continued on. But this openness and vulnerability, I think, was never. I think definitely you can say that about the album and the lyrics on the album, and in a variety of ways you can say that about this era. But I think nothing is more emblematic of that to me than this song and this music video, and nothing conveys it as sharply. So there's just this beautiful element of this to me, of the choice to open yourself up to not only like certain parts of yourself, right? And we think of this like I can relate to this too from like as a perspective as a queer person of owning your own identity and coming to terms with certain things about yourself that maybe you've struggled with, but at the same time that meta narrative of the song as well, the choice to open yourself up knowing that it makes you vulnerable, I think is like yeah, man. I mean, it just affected me so deeply when I was watching it for the first time because it was like there's none of that artifice is there. It's just so it's just such a direct translation of that freedom and that vulnerability that exists within all of that. You know what I mean? And that's like a poor way for me to articulate it, but I think it's like all of that is so in the DNA of this song and this video in a way that Vincent Haycock and Harry and everybody who was involved, like, I'm just so blown away by their ability to convey that through the form of a music video, Like, there's a reason, I guess, why I'm not a music video director, and that I can't imagine how one goes about that. But to even be able to have this discussion and to even be talking about these things is, like, I think such a gift that they gave us to start out this album cycle. And I think I'm just so appreciative of that, and I'm so appreciative that I was there for it and that I saw it and that it did affect me, because the other side of it is that it was a great introduction to him as an artist, and I'm sure it was an introduction for a lot of people to him as an artist. And I think as an album opener in that way, I think it was really effective.
Yeah, I agree. So I guess I really don't have anything to cap on that. Do you have any final thoughts?
I mean, just that I'm sure as soon as we finish recording this podcast that I am going to think of things that the video does that are interesting that I didn't say, and that it's impossible to fully convey and articulate and sum up all the things that exist in this video, because it is such an emotional, thought-provoking work that it's difficult to discuss. I felt I almost like Gray kind of made this document in preparation for this episode, and I was kind of hesitant initially to do it because there's so much for me wrapped up in this, and I feel so many ways about it that I can't even fully understand myself. Like, it's one of those things where, a lot of times, like, you think, like you mentioned the Dutch angles before in film, that a Dutch angle is meant to convey a sense of uncertainty or something like that, and it's like so many things work together to do that in art that you don't understand, and you just receive the feeling, and all the mechanics behind it that produce that feeling in you don't understand, but you still get the feeling. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about this video, right? As much as I can discuss, all the things that are behind it, I think there's so much there, and we can talk about the artistic elements, we can talk about how the costumes and lighting contribute to that idea. Like, at the end of the day, I just get such a specific emotion and feeling that comes from this video, and mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm at a loss for words, I guess, appropriately, because that's what I was like on October 10th or whatever when this came out, and that's how I felt then. And hopefully now I've come to some terms of understanding about why it affected me so much, and why I still tear up a little bit now when I watch it. I watched it today, I teared up. I watched it 2 days ago when we were initially going to record it, I teared up. It's just such a vulnerable, such an interesting, such a beautiful music video and song. And I think,
it's kind of crazy, honestly, to be sitting here and actually recording our thoughts on it. I know there was a period like last summer, and he and I have been friends for almost a year now, and there have been like periods of time, like I know, like for weeks on end, where sometimes we'll get fixated on this video or like on something related to this video, and that'll just be like the conversation that we have at 3 a.m. for like 2 weeks in a row. And it's just, and right now that conversation has shifted to other topics like Bucky Barnes, but
listen.
But one of our go-tos, definitely for a very long time, on and off, has been the Lights Up music video. So I just can't express all of the thoughts and feelings that I've ever had about this video. I've had so many that, like, I've talked to Key and just been like, half of the ones that I've had, I don't like even want to immortalize because I've had so many different thoughts, feelings, reactions over time. Like, probably a year from now, when I'm listening to this podcast, I'll be like, I had these other 4 thoughts that I never said, and I disagree with like 3 of those things that I said. Like, it's so dense, and we, at least for me, what I'm perceiving from you as well, we both are like at the end of talking about the themes that I think that we have, and it still feels like it doesn't encompass all of the conversations and feelings that we've had over time about this song and this music video.
Yeah, it's that's what's so hard about communicating a feeling, right? Mm-hmm. Is that at the end of it, it's a feeling and you just feel it. And I think hopefully the people who listen to this episode, of course, the people who listen to this episode are the ones who are going to understand that the most. Mm-hmm. Because I think people did respond to this video in a very appreciative and interesting way. And I think as time has gone on, like, I so appreciate that I still get the same feeling from it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've tried to unpack throughout this conversation why we feel that feeling. And I hope that our listeners have found it enjoyable and interesting to try and do that. And I hope, and if you have thoughts or feelings that we haven't covered in this episode, and why you respond to the video in the way that you do, or how you respond to the video, I'd be very interested to hear that, because I'm always interested to have this conversation with people. But in the end, like, what does art do if not just make us feel? Mm-hmm. And as much as I want to suss out in my own brain why I feel the things that I feel, at the end of the day, it's a feeling, and you feel it. And I'm great. And I'm, you know, that's not the smartest thing I've ever said, but it's what I'm grateful that this video gives me.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I think that wraps that up. And so now we're going to transition into a little funky section called, Hey Keith, so what does Harry have to say about Lights Up?
So I think Harry faces a similar struggle, which is that this is hard to talk about, and it's hard to sum up your feelings about it. And so Harry has said, and I quote, "For me, it's a very uplifting song, and I think in places it's kind of dark, it's very liberating. It's about self-reflection, self-discovery, and just like freedom. It feels very free to me. Things that I've been trying to process and I guess wrestle with a little bit over the last couple of years. It's kind of like just accepting all of those things. It's a very positive song to me." Right. So
it's about things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like first of all, I find it, I think I can so empathize after trying to discuss what this video means on a podcast for the past 2 hours and change. I can so empathize with his struggle to articulate it, especially to the media, because I think the video conveys what it conveys. And then outside of that, you try to explain it to people and you try to talk about it, and it's like, it's a difficult task. It's a difficult challenge, right? But I think to me, the key part of this quote is like, that I've been trying to process and I guess wrestle with a little bit over the past couple of years. It's kind of like just accepting all of those things. And so there, when we talk about, you know, self-reflection, and we talk about freedom, and we talk about openness, when we talk about queerness, like, what speaks to that more than this really uplifting and interesting insight from him? Like, I think I'm so happy to hear that from him, as in specific as he was, you know?
Mm-hmm. One thing that frustrates me, and I did tweet about this earlier today, but I do think that around this song, like, a lot of people found that it was an invitation to sort of try and push what his boundaries were. And he kind of, I don't know, he's still, at the end of the day, like, one thing, I mean, I do admire it about him. One thing, he is still a pretty private person. And people, they really didn't just, like, take things at face value. Like, they kind of started to bother him. Like, what does it mean? Say it. Like, what is it about? And, like, I do have a lot of admiration for him right away, making it clear, like, okay, here's a song. You can look at it and see it how you like and listen to it and interpret it in your own ways. And I'm going to say it's about things, and you guys can hang out with that. You're welcome.
But yes, and I agree with that. I think it's like, it's interesting because I'm so interested in this idea of him performing the song. You know, he performed the song once and he said, "Do you know who you are?" And he said, "I do now," which is the audio clip, of course, that ends our podcast. And we'd be remiss to not mention that in this discussion. Because I think that was so affecting at the time. And it's so emotionally impactful to me to hear him say that in a performance of this song. And to hear him say it's kind of like accepting all of those things. It's a very positive song to me because there is such pain in this song and this speaks to such a struggle. Like there's this, you know, there's like we've talked about throughout the episode, there's this struggle, there's this pain that's in this song. And so I find it very emotionally impactful that it also, there's this owning, there's this freedom in the song and the video, and that he would perform it that way and say this about it. I find very emotionally affecting and impactful. And also frustrating, yeah, that there's this continual push to categorize, to nail down, to pin down when I think I'm struggling not to be like, he just wants us to all vibe. Like, can't you just vibe? I'm like, that's like not, you know, he just wants us all to vibe, but that's not.
That's the most multi-gender attracted shit too. That's like, can't we all just like vibe?
Vibe. Yeah, so I think overall, I just feel very happy that this is a positive song to him, and that even though there is this pain in the song, that the overall message to him when he talks about it is that it's an uplifting and it's a liberating song, because that's what I get from it, and that's why it was so impactful to me. That vulnerability, that openness, and that uplifting nature of the message of the song. Like I feel very happy that that's what he takes from it.
Yeah, I agree. So finally, to wrap up, we're just going to talk about the follow-up content. So Vincent Haycock's leak of photographs, and then we're going to talk a little bit about impact. So Vincent Haycock has been really trying to let us know that there was a director's cut of Lights Up that we're just never going to see.
Yeah, that's painful to me.
Ow.
But, you know, it's been a long time since we were teased with that, so emotionally I've accepted it by this point. But yeah, so we got this photo of this so we got a few photos of him from behind the scenes, and a lot of them are very beautiful. Like there's this one photo of Harry kind of like laying that looks like maybe it was like similar to the Wires shot before on a beach. There's just like a beautiful photograph. But I think the most interesting photo that we got from Vincent Haycock is this photo in the green room setting of multiple Harrys all together in the same shot, all wearing different outfits from the music video, and some outfits that weren't in the music video. So, we've been talking for so long, I don't necessarily want to have like an in-depth breakdown about like, what could this possibly mean? And like each individual Harry, like what they all signify, because if anything has emerged from this conversation, it's that like, that's not so much what I think this video is meant to do. There's not like a one-to-one direct, I'm trying to convey A, B, and C. But at the same time, like there's just like, I just find like, first of all, I love all these outfits. So there's that. But I'm so curious as to what, the why, like a longer version of this or a different version of this would be, and what that they might have added. Like, are there different scenes in different settings that are boxer Harry and ballet Harry and dress Harry and all of this? Like, I just wonder, did they film all those things and then cut it, or did they just pop up in this? Like there's just a lot of questions it raises.
I'm in mourning. I'm sad. I wish that we had it, but I do think that this is interesting, especially if this is the green room, because it kind of and I wonder if this is why it was cut, but it kind of like maybe suggests, okay, like which Harry am I going to put out there? And maybe they wanted to streamline the message a little bit more, or I can't know what's inside the heads of Vincent Haycock and Harry Styles. I'm not sure Vincent Haycock knows what's inside the head of Harry Styles, because he wanted to put out his director's cut and was told no.
Yeah, no, I really like what you just said. I think that's a really interesting idea, because I think when I look at this, you immediately think self-reflection, you think like different versions of yourself, you think self-discovery. But I think, that which of these people is going to go out there, I think is a really interesting idea.
Yeah. So bestie Vincent, if you're out there and you want to talk to us more about this, and you don't have an NDA on it, hit us up.
I'm positive that he does, but I would die to talk to him about it. So, yeah, I want this vampire outfit so bad. The one where that's closest to the camera. Where
yeah.
he's
You would look good in that.
I want that so bad, but alas.
He is 6 feet tall and looks like an Edwardian vampire already.
So you can't say that to our podcast listeners because they'll believe you.
But you should. He is
listener,
definitely 6 feet tall.
You should know that that's not the case, but I guess I'll run with it.
Okay, but you're
in conclusion,
you're like basically 6 feet tall. You're like 5'7".
That's so far from 6 feet tall. Anyway,
it's way less far from 6 feet tall than me.
That's fair. I have no qualms with my height, but I am not 6 feet tall.
I am not. I am a short king.
Yeah, I can't wait for Short Kings on tour, aka Harry Styles Love on tour. But so in conclusion, I think I broke Gray. So I gotta wait for a second for him to come back. That's a long running joke between us.
Okay, can I tell the joke a little?
No, I think it's better to just leave it there. Short Kings on tour, we're both going to be there. That's all they need to know. All right. In conclusion, Vincent Haycock, I would love this director's cut, and it's painful to me that we don't have it. But at the same time, the music video is like my favorite thing ever, and so it's not like I'm complaining about what we got.
Yeah.
Into our closing thoughts.
Yeah. So do you think it was the right way to start the era, or would you have thought of anything else?
I think very funny to ask that at this point in the podcast, in which my answer is clearly going to be yes. Can you imagine if I was like,
you're like, no. I think no. In fact that Sunflower Volume 6 should have opened the era.
Yeah, can you imagine if I was like, after everything I just said, actually, no, I don't think it was the right no. Obviously, I think it was the right thing. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I'm so grateful that it was there to introduce me to him as an artist. So it goes down and it's like my favorite thing he's ever done. So clearly the answer is going to be yes there for me.
I think that I would have made one exception if Canyon Moon had started the era. That would have kind of slapped. You know what I mean?
It would have slapped, but I don't think I'd take that alternate reality over this. But I do. It is funny to think about everybody going, like, everybody would have thought he would have been like a country singer. Not that Canyon Moon's like directly country, but I think it would have been interesting to see the everybody's reaction to that and the media's reaction to that if that had been the first single. But I'm happy it was Lights Up.
Yeah, me too. What do you think the long-term impact of Lights Up will be?
Well, it certainly will live rent-free in my brain forever. I think that, I'm interested to see, I think it's such a perfect opener to the era. So now the bar is set so high. I think I'll see kind of, as Harry continues with these musical eras, I'm so interested to see, for his next album, what that first single is going to look like, what that rollout's going to look like. Mm-hmm. And I think he's his strength is continually surprising everyone. So I can't imagine that it will mimic this in any sort of way, but I'm so interested to see, kind of this in comparison to other openers in the future.
Yeah, me too.
Also, literally, so this is funny because I have one more thing to say, which is that I can't believe we didn't actually talk about the title of the song, which is Lights Up, which what a perfect title.
It is, especially for the opener.
It's like everything we've talked about. Like, first of all, lights up on a new era. Lights up on, as an artistic statement of intent, lights up on this person that we're going to be with for this artistic era.
So cool.
Such a perfect song title to start the era. And also, as we talk about that opening up of vulnerability, it's just such a perfect title to sum up everything about it. So how exciting. And he just said it in all caps all the time. And what a moment. What an intro.
Yeah, it's very much a moment. Thomas Edison would have been so proud. I stole that from Twitter, and I don't know who made it, but whoever you are, you're very funny.
Oh, yeah. Was it Rip Thomas Edison? He would have loved Lights Up in that format that everybody's been doing. That's great.
Yeah. Although I
love that.
Was listening to a podcast earlier this week that said many unsavory things about Thomas Edison that would lead me to believe that he perhaps would not approve of this music video at all.
No.
Anyway, so with that, now our outro. Key, are you looking forward to non-Harry things, books, movies, TV recs? one non-hairy thing
so
bringing you joy in these difficult times. Ooh, he's ready. He's raring. He's hot on the fire.
Yes, so as I alluded to in our intro, I'm sure I am not alone in someone who is very much back in the swing of Marvel things, which I've touched on prior in our podcast, but it's really getting dangerous now, as Gray can vouch for the amount of messages that I send him that I sometimes regret because I'm like, oh no, I'm becoming that person, but whatever.
I love it.
And that is a result of me watching The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is a show that I would not say, like many things, right? Like many Marvel properties, there are certain things that I have questions about that we shall see how I will feel inevitably about the show once it is ending. But right now, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's really got me back in the swing of things. Mm-hmm. And I listen to many, many podcasts about it throughout the week. And I look at a lot of coverage about it. And I just, my brain is just filled with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier right now. So if you do message me about it, I'm sure I will answer you. So listeners, if you are looking for somebody to talk about this show with, let me know because I talk about it all day. And now maybe I'll regret saying that because I probably should talk about it less.
Why? It's awesome.
What's been going on in my brain of late.
It's a great show. I like it a lot. Yeah. I guess I've been watching Falcon and Winter Soldier 2 and really, really enjoying it. I haven't written anything in like so many months, but I have been considering writing Sam Bucky fan fiction. I've been considering if that's the what I want to tumble on towards. So that's exciting thing that may or may not happen. Let's see. I have been listening to a lot of different music this week. I asked my Twitter if any of you guys listen to my music racks, and most of you said you don't. 4 people had actual opinions. 2, I think, were that my taste is good. 1 was that it's okay, and then 1 thinks that my taste is really bad. So there's not like a good. There's not like a.
We have an honest listener
podcast,
base, which I think is funny. And so thank you to that person. I guess. I mean, I guess I can't say that on your behalf, but I find that funny.
This week I'm going to recommend, since everybody thinks everybody's not listening anyway, but I will say if you are listening. Earlier this week, I was re-listening to Ludo's You're Awful, I Love You, which is like this album that's a zillion years old. It's like from 2006. But I heard a lot of songs from it, and then I had never listened to the whole thing, and then I listened to it a few times this week, and it's just so good. It's like pop punk. It's just good music. Just good music that I like.
Nice.
So do you want to take us out of here, Key?
Yeah, sure. So you can contact us at weblameharrystyles@gmail.com. On Twitter and Tumblr, we can be found at HarryStylesPod. You can follow us there. You can let us know if you have any suggestions. Particularly, I'd love if you let us know what you thought of this episode. Something we've been wanting to do for a really long time. And like we've talked about at length, it's hard to articulate our thoughts on something like this. So let us know what you thought about it. A way to do that also is to rate and review our podcast. We'd so appreciate it if you took us a second and you did that for us.
Subscribe to us on your preferred podcast host to become notified of our next episode. Thank you for listening. We love you. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Louder.
Lights up and they know who you are. Know who you are. Do you know who you are?
Until now.